Hello, welcome to my Defense Stories channel. I'm Mason, and I'm here for another defense topic and story. After the Israeli airstrike on multiple sites, there was a discussion about a mysterious Iranian radar system that locked onto Israeli attacks, stopping them from entering. People wondered what radar could identify Israeli jets beyond Iran's borders and lock onto them. These comments were made by a former British intelligence officer, Astro Croc. Let's hear more from him. The discussion was about figuring out whether this radar system is an Iranian one or a foreign one. Many people were curious about what kind of radar system it is. What air defense system could identify Israeli fighter jets beyond Iran's borders and lock onto them, preventing them from entering Iranian airspace? This was said by a former British intelligence officer, Astro Croc. Let's hear more from him as he has a lot to share about this, especially regarding the Israeli perspective. These comments were made by a former British intelligence officer, Astro Croc. Let's hear more from him. He has a lot to say about this, especially regarding the Israeli perspective. Now, it's important to note that they are focused on defense systems, and they have a lot of interest in these systems. They are really keen on understanding how these systems work and their implications.
But something significant did happen, I think, during this, because it was supposed to lead off with destruction of the air defenses of Iran, so that the second and third waves would come in with conventional weapons to destroy the targets that had been set for them. The second and third waves were ready to bring conventional weapons, but they could only go into that, if you like, they could only penetrate into Iranian airspace if it was safe for them to do that, if you like, the air defense had been properly suppressed. Now, what happened, we don't know precisely, so much of this is putting it together, but those second and third waves never happened. They didn't happen at all. We got into the first wave, and then suddenly the Israelis said, well, that's it, we're finished. It's now over, and we've won, and it's a great success. And what seems to have happened was during that first wave, the Israeli aircraft with their long-range missiles on it that were supposed to destroy the air defenses never got beyond 70 to 100 kilometers closer to Iran than that. Too far, if you like, for their missiles to lock on to air defenses. They weren't able to lock on to it. And they said, the key thing they said, and this comes from Israeli sources, more than Iranians, but from Israeli sources, they said, we've discovered an unknown air defense system over Tehran province. So what was happening? Well, it seems to be that, first of all, they were being locked onto by another missile defense system, and that they were frightened to go ahead, and so they scrapped the attack. They then just released their missiles, these long-range missiles. But what I think we are seeing when we heard about this unexplained air defense system was possibly a Russian air defense missile system that can attack stealth fighters like the S-35s of Israel. Then the whole idea of the attack on Iran seems to have collapsed. It would be too dangerous. Wouldn't dare do it because they were not going into a secure area, a secured airspace. It was unsecured airspace. In fact, it was being dominated by air defense systems which threatened the stealth fighters themselves. A huge affair. It has geostrategic implications.
We have systems that are less talked about. I would rather say we built weapon systems. And we built these systems with the help of people whose roles in the air defense sector haven't been talked about much. These are individuals who have played a significant role in enhancing our country's air defense capabilities. Yet they haven't received much attention in discussions. If I want to be specific, the late Dr. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was a renowned Iranian scientist who was also assassinated by the Israelis. Many of you know him. You've seen his face in various media after he was killed. He was the Deputy Minister of Defense and the head of Iran's Defense Research and Innovation Organization. There has been less discussion about his role in the field of air defense. We had a conversation with his son, Mr. Hamed, and I think it can greatly help to decode the unknown aspects of Iran's air defense. Let's watch and listen to these comments together. We had a conversation with his son, Mr. Hamed, and I think it can greatly help to decode the unknown aspects of Iran's air defense. Let's watch and listen to these comments together. Expert Gorby mentioned that there was an unknown defense system in the sky over Iran. It was unfamiliar to the Americans and Israeli aircraft, and he said this prevents them from reaching us. In the discussions we've heard, it was mentioned that Martyr Fakhrizadeh was the founder of a new modern style of air defense in Iran. Please give me an explanation about this, as much as I can say, and the mercenaries.
General Bagheri noted that over 90% of the Martyr's work is confidential. Many aspects, especially in air defense, remain undisclosed. General Farahi, then Deputy Minister of Defense, highlighted Martyr Fakhrizadeh's pioneering work in high-power lasers and laser defense starting in the early 1990s. Many aspects from these fields, like air defense, are confidential. General Farahi, the then Deputy Minister of Defense, mentioned Martyr Fakhrizadeh's work from the early 1990s in lasers, including high-power lasers. Fakhrizadeh worked on laser defense for nearly 30 years before his martyrdom. Sardar Farahib, the then Deputy Minister of Defense and current traditional deputy, one of the biggest tasks that Shahid Fakhrizadeh started. In the early 70s and before the 70s, was working on the laser field, and it was in the field of high-powered lasers and laser defense. And of course, this topic has its complexities and various layers in the fields of artificial intelligence and other areas that cannot be disclosed. But one of the defense layers he was working on and had been seriously working on for nearly 30 years before his martyrdom was indeed this topic of lasers and laser defense. In the fields of artificial intelligence and electronics, I'll make a brief mention because we can't go into details. Regarding the missiles in the field of electronics and artificial intelligence, I'll just touch on it lightly since we can't delve into specifics.
In the fields of artificial intelligence and electronics, I will make a brief reference. It's hard to go into detail.
Mr. Rockets, in the fields of electronics and artificial intelligence, in the fields of artificial intelligence and electronics, finally, we'll make a minor reference because it is impossible to go into details. General Bagheri mentioned during the 40th memorial that whenever we hit a dead end across the armed forces, we would call him and he would come back to us with solutions in a timely and effective manner, not just for the Ministry of Defense, but for the entire armed forces. So in a way, we can say that the enemy also faced a kind of legacy from him that was unknown to them. After all, the activities he had in various defense and air defense areas were so extensive that it might take decades to cover everything. So, in a way, we can say that the enemy also faced a kind of legacy from him that was unknown to them. After all, the activities he had in various defense and air defense areas were so extensive that it might take decades to cover everything.
Now we have anti-aircraft weapons that have been less talked about. Yes, the Sateb air defense system was unveiled a few years ago, and there was talk about it. But what we are saying is not necessarily the short-range Sateb air defense system. We also have long-range air defense systems. You also saw the late Dr. Fakhrizadeh's son-in-law, who said very generally that he could not be detailed. However, he always had reservations. He himself was one of those who had a very good relationship with Shahid Fakhrizadeh Hashtunasht because he was his son-in-law, and perhaps for this reason he did not want to reveal many things. God willing, there will be a lot more. Please follow us on social media and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Activate the bell next to it so that, God willing, if we post something, you'll be among the first to see and hear us. Until the next videos, for now.